Okay, we are recording, so I just want to welcome everybody to the show. For first-time watchers, welcome, appreciate it. My show usually works in a format of, I break it down into thirds. First third this week, I'm going to talk about using your miles toward business class and, when you have to consider it and when not to, kind of some of the stipulations going with that. The second third, I will talk about the American Express Platinum card, when the best idea is to apply for that card, when not to apply. There's so many posts on the subreddit about it. It seems like it's one of the most talked about cards, even though it's a once per lifetime bonus card, which is kind of strange. Most cards don't get spoken about. I guess the SPG card does, but it's pretty limited. So we'll talk about that in the second third. And then in the final third, I kind of open it up to a Q&A type session where people can jump on and, kind of chat with me there. If anybody listening to the show right now wants to co-host and jump on with me, talk about award miles, just let me know who you are and your Reddit name, and then I'm going to have the seat unlocked here in a moment. You're always free to jump on if you really want to, so it's always appreciated. Okay, so we're going to go and get started now. This is the 9th show that I've done. Actually, I went back through and I actually started counting them, and this is the 9th show, so I'm pretty impressed. It's pretty good. And popularity has been kind of gone off a little bit. I think the novelty of it has fallen off, but as long as the show content is still good and you guys enjoy it, that's all that matters. So the first, like I said, I want to start off talking about business class seats and using some of those miles. And for anybody out there who is stocking American Airlines miles like myself, whether to fly first or not first class necessarily, business class or economy or even first class, I guess you could say. And when not to. So from my personal experience, now that I have finally flown first class, business class, and economy, and I flew it all on great products, I would never pay for business class again, or first class again, I'm sorry. I would never pay for first class again. While I did have a great experience, and I absolutely loved it, with American Airlines, their new program, it's just not really worth the excess in miles. I had a very enjoyable flight in business. Granted, I did fly a really nice airline. I flew the Japan 787, the Dallas to Narita route, which is, it's one of the best in the world. But, I would have to imagine business classes are going to be similar to that. And I can't justify the increase in miles. So, moving forward, my flights are going to be business class or economy. And it's just debating on when to do that, when not to, and kind of deciding from there. So I'm based in Pittsburgh, and I think that where you're based at plays a large role in that, because somebody from California may, value a business flight to London a lot more than somebody in New York may. We live in a big country, and our airline miles, for the most part, at least in almost every program, I don't think there's any program that considers the U.S. anything but U.S. So that can actually change your mind in a lot of different ways, because whatever, let's say the New York to London routes, if anybody can chime in, I think it's 6 hours or so, as compared to LAX to London. That's a much longer flight, so you may be willing to up your miles a little bit more and pay for those extra miles to fly business class. But at least, moving forward with the show, we're just going to be using my example here, leaving Pittsburgh. So it's an extra 4 hours, Brooks says. So that's a pretty big difference. You're talking fresh hours in a plane. It's pretty big. And not only that, but the JFK route, which I'm going to touch on, leaves much later in the night, or in the evening or night. So that also, helps. When I was flying, my fiance and I were looking to fly to Madrid, and then from Madrid we're just going to see Spain. So we're going to spend, I think, 6 nights, 2 nights in Madrid, 2 nights in Valencia, 2 nights in Barcelona, and then fly back Barcelona to Madrid, Madrid to U.S., and then U.S. to Pittsburgh. So I say U.S. because I'm not sure exactly which airline or which route I'm going to get. And that was one of the posts I just made, and ordered tickets, and I got some good feedback from Av. So a few things to consider. But the first thing we had to decide was, are we flying economy both ways? are we going to fly business class both ways, or are we going to fly business class one way? And like I said, it's not just about picking out the better seat and flying it, or I have the miles, why not do it? I look at it like, if I'm going to fly business class, I guess I want to experience it. I don't want to sleep through it. I made that mistake when I went to Japan. I flew the 787, which is just an absolutely beautiful plane. But the problem is I stayed up the entire night because I knew I was trying to get ready for the jet lag and I wanted to get ahead of it. So I basically pulled an all-nighter. I was just dead tired, and at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm walking through the airport like a zombie. And I get on the plane, and we ate dinner. It was really enjoyable. But right after that, like, I am ready to crash. I mean, I've been up for 26 hours or so, maybe even a little bit longer than that, maybe 28, 29 hours. So I, we eat, I lay down, and I sleep. And I literally slept it was a comfortable flight. It was a very comfortable flight. The lay flat bedding, the mattress topper, everything was great. But I literally slept for like 10 hours. So I woke up there were maybe 8 hours, and I woke up with 2 hours left to go. So I watched a movie and had a little snack, and I was there. And while the experience was incredible, I felt like I missed out on a lot of it because I just slept the entire time. And at that point, I was so exhausted, I probably could have just slept back in economy, and would have been just as well. So there is a big, I guess that one of my debates is, are you looking for an experience as in the plane? And this kind of goes into what I spoke about last week's show, or are you in it just to get sleep, be rested, and be ready to go when you land? And I think you want, for me at least, I want to see a balance of both of those. I do want to take a nice nap, but when I wake up, I want to experience a nice flight. So that's at least my process of how I debate, or how it goes through my head on what I'm thinking. Do I want to pay the extra miles for business? And generally, I know that business class is going to be twice as much as economy. And that isn't always true, as you'll see in the example that I'm using here. So, getting back on track, my fiance and I are going to be taking that trip to Madrid, and we booked it for late February, and we did that for a couple reasons. Number one, because it's colder. We both hate heat, so if it's like 80 or 90, we're not walking around. Anything above like 75, we're just not a fan of. It's really cold in Pittsburgh, so we'll be leaving Pittsburgh, and it's probably going to be like 20. And Madrid, it's 50. I'm hoping it's like right around the 50s, maybe 60. That's not a bad temperature, and there's no tourists, so it's a really good time of the year, in my opinion, to see Spain. The flip side of that also is that you have the American Airlines, the off-peak time, so you do save a lot of miles when flying economy. I don't actually have. I have to bring it up now. Partner award chart. I'm thinking when you're talking off-peak now, the mileage went up to 22,500. So it was 20,000, went up to 22,500 for off-peak, and then 30,000 for peak. Let me make sure of that. Yes, I'm looking at partner. I always look at the partner award chart. If you guys don't know, when you're on Google, if you type in AA award chart, you will have the American Airlines award chart. Always look up the AA partner award chart, and when you click on that first link, that takes you to the, like I said, the partner award chart, which is, and let's see, okay. And I just put up the partner award chart for you. So there's a big difference between the two. Typically, you don't want to fly American Airlines. When you have American Airline miles, you want to fly other products. So looking up the partner chart allows you to see what American charges you for flying on Japan Airlines and Cathay Pacific and Iberia and those kind of airlines. So partner chart always. And then as Brooke says, the off-peak dates are way worse now, and they really are. So they were just about half the year was considered off-peak, and now you literally get just a couple weeks. Let me see here. If I'm looking on the partner chart, January 10th through March 14th. So you get January, you get February, March. So you only get 2 months there. And then November 1st to December 14th. So you get a month and a half there. They've cut, it used to literally be 6 months to 6 months, and they've cut it down just about entirely. So we're booking end of February, which gets us in that off-peak miles. And like I said, we're looking at 22,500 per person per, one way. So that's 45,000 miles a person, 90,000 miles for both of us round trip. We're sitting on just about 300,000 miles right now. So, 100,000 miles, that is a good amount to use, and it kind of gives us a lot of sway on other trips in the future. So that's not bad. The other parts of this is that, like I said, we're saving miles, but business stays the same. So business is always going to be 57,500 is the new amount. I think it was, I want to say 50. They raised it up to 57, or maybe it was 55, but it's now 57,500 miles. So big difference there is that, from flying during the peak time, you kind of maximize your business travel a little bit. If you want to look at it like that, since there is no off-peak on business, it kind of makes flying economy a little bit sweeter just because you are saving 7,500 miles per person per trip. So that's the first thing that I look at, when I'm looking to fly there. You're going to save a lot more miles by flying economy. The second aspect to this is the flight time. When I look at the time of the flight, I'm going to be flying out of JFK at, I want to say 10 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night. So it's already pretty late at night. I'm landing in Madrid at 6 or 7 a.m. For whatever it was, like a 7-hour flight. So that plays a big role in it too. I'm taking off at night. I'm going to land in the morning. Generally you're going to want to sleep. So if you choose to sleep through that entire flight, again, do you really need the meal? Can't you eat a meal beforehand? Get on the plane, just try to crash, and then when you land, you're awake, you're ready to go anyways. So that played a role in it. And then finally on the way back, like I said, I kind of do want to fly business class one way, and my flight coming back from Madrid to JFK, or from Barcelona to Madrid to JFK, or wherever I decide to go, that's a morning flight. So I'm more likely to take business for a flight like that, where I can actually stay awake and get to experience everything a little bit more and kind of live through pressing the button, have somebody there. It's really nice. So I did see somebody jumping in, and I was actually on a different web page. So if you want to jump back in, just shoot me your Reddit name so I know who it is, and then I can accept that call. Yeah, and I'll touch on that a little bit, Jacob, here. Probably a little bit more toward the end. I just want to kind of focus on the business class right now, but I'll get to that question. So there's a lot of things that go into it for me. It's not just about, do I fly business or not? There's a lot of questions that go into it for me. I want to know the time of the flight. I want to know how long the flight is. I want to know, are there off-peak dates where I can get economy a lot cheaper? And then finally, the last aspect to this is I want to know the product I'm flying. And that is not an easy void to fill when you're looking at flights to Europe. So Europe is pretty limited. You have Iberia, which has a pretty nice nice business class product from everything I've read. And I will be flying that coming back from Italy in October. So that's nice. I actually get a little bit of a taste of it. And by a little bit of a taste, I mean an entire taste. I'm going from Madrid to Miami, so I'll get to experience that. There's American Airlines, which they fly a lot of different planes. They fly a different plane to London as they do to Madrid, as they do to Milan. So you really have to look to see what exact plane you're going to be on before you want to book a business class seat. Some are really old, and then they have some that are retrofitted and newer. So the product itself plays a pretty big role in it as well. British Airlines, not a big fan of their stuff. Plus, they have huge fuel surcharges, especially when you get up to that business and first class level. So, really not interested in them at all. And then that's really about it. Those are really your big choices. Avs posted back to my thread. I'm have to pardon me for a second as I go back into it. But he was talking about flying AY, which is Finnair. They fly through Helsinki. So I'm not sure. I don't know if that would be a valid routing for American Airlines or not, to go from Madrid up to Helsinki and then back to JFK. That may be over the 25%, whatever it is, the mileage marker. So that'd be something to check into. But yeah, that's different first class product or business class product, and they do offer something that's pretty nice. So, but you can see that, at least for me, and if you guys want to chime in with any experiences you guys have, it'd be great. But there's a lot that goes into my decisions on just whether to fly business or not, because it's not just an easy decision for me. I want to make sure I don't want to necessarily make sure I'm maximizing my miles or anything like that. I mean, business class is going to be nice on whatever airline you fly it on. But going back to my conversation of last week, there are a handful of flights that I want to take, and there's a handful of experiences I want to have. So like flying an A330 first class, on Emirates or something like that, that's one experience I want to have. And I want to make sure that I save miles for that. And, like Japan Airlines business class on that new Sky Suite, the 787, that was one experience I wanted to have. So I know that there's a certain number of, flights out there that I want to save up for. And in order to do that, you can't waste miles on, ridiculous flights that, are really not that nice, like a 6-hour flight to Madrid when it's going to be overnight and you're going to sleep the entire time anyways. Has anybody here booked any flights over to Europe? Either American Airlines, British, or any of the One World partners? Or heck, any of the airlines for that matter. I guess it doesn't really matter. It seems, I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. But my judgment on everybody churning, and generally, I don't think it's just people who watch this show, but I believe it's a number of people. But it seems like everybody is newer. And when I say newer, I mean, maybe kind of been in here for a year, something like that. But none of us really have a lot of experience flying a lot of different airlines. And if you do, it's not through award travel. It's likely through business. At least that's the kind of way it seems to me. So, a lot of people don't have, quite the experience, I guess, to step in and say, yeah, I've flown all these different products, unless you've done it for business. Dan brings up a good point. Boston, Ireland on Avios. So Avios is nice if you can get to Boston for cheap. Avios comes in hand on your peak dates. So on off-peak, it's not really that much of a savings. Actually, you're going to be losing. American Airlines 22,500 is really good deal, but since you're very limited, when you're talking off-peak hours or off-peak dates, especially if you live around the Boston area, if you can get to Boston cheap, that's one good way to do it. Generally for me, it just seems it'd be a hassle to get to Boston. And since Avios, for people who may not be aware, they are distance-based. So that's why you're going to be getting that Boston to Ireland a lot cheaper than you're going to get, Chicago to Ireland. Because when you're not talking about that distance base anymore, the amount goes up quite a bit. So, yeah, Avios is not bad. It's not a bad way to get to Ireland. And I think that may have been the method that Loophole Travel, Jesse over at Loophole Travel, I believe that's the method he used to get to Europe, and he went to like Dublin, Scotland, Ireland, maybe did some UK, I'm not too sure. No, he did UK, I think. UK and maybe even Paris. Maybe I'm like completely out of, my God, my head is, I read so many different trip reports that it's so hard to keep them all organized. But I know for a fact that he went Boston to Dublin. I believe he used the Avios trick there. And he did a lot of that trip, and he'll have the stuff online. It looks really good. Some of the pictures and experiences. I actually have them on Facebook, so I got to see as he was living it. And man, it makes me want to take that trip. So I'm sure at some point I'm going to have to jump on that. But I guess, like I said, for me, there's a lot that goes into choosing a business class seat. It's not just about the miles. It's not just about the product. Everything plays a small factor into it. So you've got the product of what you're going to be flying. If you're flying a, A330 as compared to a 737. You have the distance of your flight, the time and the night of your flight. There's so many factors that go into it. and then how valuable your time is when you land. So if you only have a couple hours, wow, a couple days, maybe you're going to be booking a Europe flight and you just want to be there for like 3 or 4 days. Maybe it is worth it to pay that a little bit extra in business class just to make sure you have a nice bed, you're going to sleep well, you're going to wake up, and that first day you're ready to go. So in that situation, it may be worth a little bit more than, if you're there for 2 weeks and you're going to stay in Madrid for 3 days, which you probably don't need 3 days for. So a lot of things that go into it. It's not an easy decision. And I think that's what award travel. If you guys don't look at award travel, I don't know if they took the thing off the main. They did. Yeah, they removed award travel post from the churning subreddit. But award travel is now ran by the same mods as churning. And it is absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of great posts, a lot of great information. And I tell you, it's really good just to read what people post, just because in case you ever decide to take a similar flight. So, I mean, I know when you see something like Boston to London or something like that, you may be like, oh, that doesn't affect me at all. I live in Los Angeles. But it really could, because some of the different routings and some of the different tricks and things that go into it, you're going to want to keep track of those. They can become really important. So whoever was just calling in, I'm sorry if you want to call in again. I was off the screen trying to jump back in. So I was on the churning subreddit. I do that so often, and it looks, you guys see me, but really what I'm looking at is I'm looking at 1,000 different posts and flipping between things and trying to keep up with everything. I saw somebody trying to call in, but I'm not sure who it was. So if you're there and you want to call in, feel free to do so. I think that's basically, that's 23 minutes on business travel and kind of my opinions on it. There's a lot that goes into it. It's just, I said, it's not an easy decision. For me at least, it's a very, laid out this decision to do. I want to post a link to you guys as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share out my Google Drive document. I'll show you guys a Google Drive document that I created. And what I do is when I'm looking up flights and I'm trying to piece things together through, the British Airways website and then the American Airlines website, I have a special spreadsheet that I created. Actually, it's not a spreadsheet at all. It's a Word document. But I created this in order to keep track of availability, flight numbers, and times. So let me take my February, my Hawaii trip that I'm never going to take. I'll show you. That's kind of maybe a little bit more complicated. I'm looking for. Here's another trip that I never booked, is Bali. There, that's a good one. Okay. Let me share it to anybody with a link. I'm going to get you guys a link here in a couple seconds. Alrighty. Anyone with a link can view it. Yes. Okay. Copy the link. Done. Alrighty. So here's a spreadsheet that I use. And this spreadsheet this is a trip to Bali that I planned that I didn't end up taking. But on this spreadsheet, you can see all my flight numbers, as I keep track. And it helps me keep track of everything in order. So, and I book these, every time if I find something, I'll say like this flight or, American Airlines 071 from Pitt to JFK, Y. And I just kind of like, book flights like that. And it helps me to keep track of availability. And it keeps everything uniform. So if I am looking for flights, I can piece together flights really easily. Because if you guys haven't done this yet, if you haven't tried to piece flights together through American Airlines and the British Airways site, it becomes very complicated when you're trying to, you get everything done except for the last leg, and then you try to find out last leg and there's no availability. So you have to go back through and do it all over again. The spreadsheet or the document that I put in the chat there, this kind of is what I use, and it just helps me keep track of everything. It's pretty basic, pretty straightforward, nothing too complicated. But it does help me keep track of all my flights. So that's basically the gist of it. I know that I don't know if that's at all helpful for you guys as much as, just explaining the way I do things. Like I said, maybe I overanalyze it, but there's a lot of great experiences out there. And your best friend on all this is Google and the subreddit, Award Travel. So always post in there, make sure you're finding the best flights, make sure you're going to get the best routings, the best products. And if it's not worth it, then just suffer through it, book your economy flights, and consider saving those miles for a business flight down the road, because there are a lot of great products. I mean, for a fact, if I ever fly back to Japan, I am flying Japan Airlines business class. There's no consideration whatsoever in my mind. There's going to be no debate of whether I fly economy or business. That's an easy decision to make. So, there are easier decisions to make than, like I'm saying, in my situation where I'm going to Europe. I'm on the East Coast, flying to Europe. It's an overnight flight. It's probably going to be economy. Don't see myself upping those miles and paying that extra amount there. So that's a lot of what goes into it. But we'll jump into the second part of the show now. I've kind of spoke about the the miles a lot more than I wanted to, but that's fine because I don't think this is going to take too long. But we'll talk a little bit about the Platinum card, and I think this is a good point where should open up a little bit of debate, a little bit of conversation on the chat. But we got 25 people here. I don't know who's all listening or not, but if you have or have not applied for the Platinum card, how many have you applied for? How many have you been approved for? Myself, I've applied for 2. I've gotten the Ameriprise. I got the regular Platinum. And then what offers did you take? So if you're going to post that in the chat, I'd really appreciate it, because it kind of creates some conversation going on what offers you took, how many offers you have left to look for. For you guys who don't know, if you're new in the churning and things like that, the American Express Platinum card offers many sign-up bonuses. There's many different flavors of the Platinum card. So you have the Mercedes-Benz, you have the Charles Schwab now, you have the regular Platinum, you have the Ameriprise Platinum, and I believe there's one more, but it's not really worth it too much. So those are your main ones. You have like 4 of them. And Dan says he applied for the Mercedes-Benz, the 75K offer today. Run Tim looking at the Amex plus 100K offer last year. I jumped on that for sure. That was the first one I jumped on, which was one of the better deals, and I still have not seen it. Was and I personally wrote up an entire post on it, and I'd have to dig through the depths of Reddit to find it. But one of my posts were the old Ameriprise Platinum offer. It was 30,000, I think 30,000 points, maybe 40,000 points, with no annual fee, which was just absolutely awesome. So you could get, I think mine offer was even higher than 25. I'm pretty sure, maybe not, but it was whatever it was like 25 or 35,000 with no annual fee. Which was such a great offer, because that annual fee is a little bit rough. I don't like paying money. Somebody a long time ago when I first got into it, somebody said, I don't pay for anything. And I've kind of similarly taken that approach. I don't like paying annual fees. I will on a few cards, especially Chase, now that I can't get, say, the Sapphire again. So I will pay a little bit, but I'm just not a fan of paying. So when you're telling me I have to come up with $300 for an annual fee up front, I don't like it. Even though I'm going to get that money back in airline reimbursements, I understand. I still just not a fan of that. And then if I look, my other card was just like Run Tim there. I got the 100,000 incognito trick last year. That was absolutely magical. So that lasted like 2 days. But that was one thing I could not pass up. Somebody on Reddit posted it. It was on Flyer Talk. It was on all the blogs. It blew up. I think it's still maybe one of the more popular posts ever on Reddit. And it blew up and became really popular. So that was one of the better days there. If we look into like I said, future cards now. What else is out there? When to apply, when not to apply. When I made the post about the show, I had somebody comment on the. Somebody commented and said, "What did I say? 100,000 miles." That ends that discussion, and I don't think it's quite that easy. So who was? Let me see here. It was J.I. Dearty says, "When you get the 100,000 offer, problem solved." For me, not that easy, because there's a lot that goes into it. The hold on a second here. Okay, a lot that goes into it. Not quite that easy when deciding on whether or not to apply for the Platinum card. I don't think the majority of us here are going to get offered that 100,000 point offer. So what it seems to be for sure, there's at least a couple things that are for sure. Number one is that the Platinum offer does not come around if you have a lot of American Express cards. I don't think there's any exceptions to that. If anybody has been targeted for the American Express 100,000 offer and they don't have, and they do have a lot of cards, please post in the chat because I'd be very, very interested in that. I don't think you get targeted if you have a lot of Amex cards, number one. Number two, I don't think you get targeted if you have a lot of credit cards, period. So I think your new accounts have to be pretty low in order for them to target you for that 100,000 offer. So I would venture to guess the majority of the people here are not going to be offered that. But here's my thing, and why holding out for that offer may not be a bad idea. As whoever it was, Tim and myself, we signed up for that 100,000 offer. There was 1 or 2 days where the 100,000 point offer was around. And like Chaska there, why don't we wait around and see? I don't think it's going to come in the form of a target offer, but given the fact that the business offer is now up to 150,000, even though that's targeted, that's a crazy deal, and you have to do a lot of manufacturer spending. Anybody who manufacturers spends, that's tough on most people. There's a few exceptions out there, deals with deals, but the majority of people are going to struggle spending that kind of money when it comes to manufactured spending. But when you see that 150,000 offer, I think that's an indication that maybe, just maybe, that 100,000 offer could go public, if only for maybe a week or something like that. Obviously these credit card companies, they have to continue to raise the bonuses to get more people to come on board and jump in. So I think when you see a 150,000 point offer, it's safe to assume that 100,000 point offer will come around eventually. Right now, you can sign up for the American Express, the Mercedes-Benz 75,000 point offer. And even right now, with all the cards I have and all the points I have, I'm debating whether or not to jump on that card. Again, I hate to pay annual fees, and right now it's just, I've invested just so much money in the turning and these trips and everything else I'm doing. It's hard for me to justify another $300. But that's you're looking at 2 points, 2 cents a point. That's a $1,500 offer just for signing up. So it's really tough. It's a tough decision to make when you're talking about this Platinum card. I think this Mercedes-Benz offer is not a bad one to jump on. I think that if you jumped on this offer for $75,000, you got to pay that annual fee up front, but you're not going to be disappointed. I don't think 2 months down the road, Mercedes-Benz is going to come out with a 100,000 point offer. I don't see that happening. So I think if you're looking to jump onto the Platinum card, and for me, the Platinum card is more than just a credit card. It's more than just having, a couple thousand or, a lot of thousand, I guess 75,000 MR points. For me, there's a lot more that goes into it. I like having the card because of it's basically AAA coverage. So a lot of people, I guess there was just a post about that. I didn't post in there yet, but I don't know if anybody else has already posted that. And if not, somebody else here can post it and steal it because What is one of the lesser known perks of the credit card you have? Wow, 41 people. Are you kidding me? But the American Express Platinum card is basically AAA insurance. You get free towing, free gas. If you run out of gas, you get, tire repair, whatever you need. It's basically AAA coverage included in a credit card at no cost to you whatsoever, if anything were to happen. So that's a great card, or a great perk to a card, I should say. And then, like I said, when you're dealing with those points, I don't see another 75,000 point offer coming around, and at least not publicly and not anytime soon. So I think that jumping on, that kind of a deal right now, you're not going to be disappointed with it. And then, like I said, going back to the 100,000 point offer, I just don't see this as being a thing that this isn't really a thing that you're not going to be targeted for it. It's very unlikely. It seems like anybody who is targeted to it is a newer person. I don't recall ever reading a post on Reddit where somebody is, one of the names that I recognize, longtime contributor said, hey, just got offered the 100,000 points. Everybody who gets it, if you look back through, if you type in platinum 100,000, you're going to see, should I apply for this 100 point offer or should this? Because new people, they're not got the offer and jumped on it. They jumped on Reddit and wanted to ask a question. So I think for the majority of the people here who post, the offer is not going to happen. It's not going to come back around. Waiting on the 100,000, I think, is wishful thinking. I'm more of a person. I like my points now. So I don't think waiting is always the best idea. Yeah, and then JR says which version has 75,000. It is the Mercedes-Benz that has the 75,000, which is a pretty good, I believe. Maybe one of the regulars could help me out here, but I don't think the Mercedes-Benz has ever been that high, and I don't think that the Mercedes-Benz will. I don't think it's been that high, even targeted or anything. Yeah, it's an all-time high for that card. And it's a pretty good card. Yeah, I believe all the cards have the same airline credits and everything. I don't think there's any card that doesn't. Maybe I'm wrong. But I believe every platinum card has the same benefits because it's still a platinum card. And I think the only difference is, I wish I had my wallet on me, but you can see on the back it has like a little logo. I'm not sure if the Mercedes-Benz does, but I know the Ameriprise, it just says Ameriprise platinum card, but it still looks the same. Everything else is the same with it. So nothing too much different there. A lot of, it is tough. I think, I guarantee I applied for the 100,000 point offer when it came around incognito. I didn't jump on it for my fiance, and I should have, and that makes me upset with myself. But if an incognito offer came back around for 75,000 points for the regular platinum card, I probably sign up for it for my fiance. I think 75,000 is my mark personally. If I see that come around again, I probably take it at that point. For right now, the Mercedes-Benz offer at 75,000 is really good. I just right now with my planning where I'm at on my cards, I just can't do it. I can't jump on it. I just applied I got the Fairmont and the IHG for my fiance. So what I try to do, getting off track a little bit, but when it comes on my Chase cards, I know that the 524 roll isn't there yet, but it will be. I have a feeling it's going to be eventually. I wanted to make sure that my IHG card and her IHG card and both of our Fairmont cards, they anniversaried at the same time so that we got, 2 nights in any IHG and we could throw this together. So I'm kind of, I plan out things like that, which put me in between, a tough spot when it comes to manufactured spending. So I'm trying to meet my spend on like 3 different cards right now. So, I can't jump on the Mercedes-Benz offer, or I certainly would. I think 75,000 is my baseline for platinum cards moving forward. If I see it at 75,000, I would certainly take it. Dave, did I go to Flyer Talk University Vegas this past weekend? If so, any data points? Man, I did not. And let me tell you about my disappointment, because I did not even know about it. I don't keep track on Flyer Talk, and shame on me for not doing it. I didn't even know about it until the guy made the post, and I immediately text my fiance. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go to Vegas this weekend. And she goes, have fun. I look up flights. I have everything like planned. And then I saw that the manufactured spending aspect of it was sold out. So I didn't want to go. It's like, if that's not there, I don't want to do it, But I was so close to jumping on it. I mean, I was literally, it was like the next day. I was going to pay something like 40,000 or 50,000 Southwest miles to get there. But I would have done it instantly. It would have been awesome. They do have one in Washington D.C. In August, so I may consider that. But I don't know how they are. I didn't look into it. I don't know how the difference between the signature events and the, all these different events. I don't know. It's confusing as hell. So I didn't really look into it too much. But yeah, I'm definitely. I do want to jump into one of those. I think it'd be kind of neat to see some of the people in the industry and just talk to them and kind of go from there. And no, I did not get any. I got no feedback from FTU at all. I'm surprised we made a post of it in churning. A little bit disappointed. I was hoping to see something. I want to know, is the $50 for the manufacturer spending talk, was it actually worth it? Did you actually learn anything? Because that's the only thing I really care about. I mean, I care about just the whole 9 yards. It's kind of interesting, but the MS aspect of it seemed really to pique my interest. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to unlock the seat. What I've noticed, and at least this is the first time ever that I've noticed this, is that we've had a number of spammers come in here and try to jump into the chat with me. So it is a little bit tough. Make sure you give me your Reddit name, or type out your Reddit name, or message me on Reddit your Reddit name and your Twitter handle before if you want to jump on, just so I know who you are, because I'm not just going to accept a call from anybody. So Chaska says, if we're new Amex versions, would you still suggest jumping on that Mercedes-Benz Platinum or waiting? No, okay. You're not going to get a 100,000 point offer on the Mercedes-Benz. I don't think that's going to happen. If you don't know, you can apply for every single version of the Platinum. So you can get the Mercedes-Benz, Ameriprise, the regular Platinum. You can get every single edition separate. So even though it's one card per lifetime, each card is different in terms of American Express, so you can apply for all of them. So yeah, I mean, if you're looking for some MR points, I have found personally, the more that I dive into this industry and the more that I've accumulated, and just the more that I've done, the transferable points, whether between your membership rewards or UR points, SPG points, those are really, really valuable. And I don't mean valuable in terms of just money, but valuable in terms of planning. So a lot of my planning right now is I have a lot of SPG points that I've kind of accumulated throughout the last few years, and I don't really stay at too many places. And I find those to be really, really flexible to transfer to AA, or kind of transfer out between some of those airlines as well. So that's, I value those MR points a lot. And like I said, if it weren't for me having 3 cards where I'm trying to reach a minimal spend on, I would certainly jump on this Mercedes-Benz Platinum card, because I think it's a really good deal. It's a great card to have, like you said, just for the benefits. The couple $100 a year is awesome. But then again, like I said, those MR points are really nice in terms of value. But the only problem with MR points is that they don't transfer to SPG well. I'm not sure about. I don't have many MR, and I don't have many UR. So all my, or even thank you points, most of my spend has always been an SPG. But is anybody who has a lot of MR points or some MR points, can you tell me how they transfer to hotels? I know they transfer to flights pretty good, and you can book a lot of different flights through them. But what hotels do they program, or do they transfer out to, and is the rate fair at all? Because I know they transfer out to SPG at complete garbage. Yeah, so see, that's the thing is, like Hilton and SPG is bad. So yeah, 1.5 is not really that good. It's so man, see, that's such a tough thing when you're not going to get a good hotel rate for them. It's still nice you have some flexibility in terms of airlines, and you can use them for like a Singapore suite. I bet that's where the majority of people use MR points. But I like SPG a lot because I can book hotels at a reasonable rate, but I can also transfer them out to just about every airline in the industry at a good rate too. I don't feel like it's one of the few programs where if I transfer out, I don't feel like I'm losing much value. So even though it's, they're great for hotel stays, if I transfer out to an airline, I don't feel like I'm doing too bad with my points in regards to Starwood points. So that's where I'm at. Like I said, 75,000 Mercedes-Benz offer. That's a really good deal. I would certainly suggest jumping on it if you haven't. Who else? What other questions we got here? So we're going to open it up here. If anybody wants to jump in, you're free to jump in. We've got another 10 minutes or so on the recording, so it's going to be maybe it's a little bit intimidating. A lot of people like to jump in afterwards. There's World Traveler. Let's see here. I got to remember how to do this all. And then I have to hope that I can actually hear you when you're speaking. Hey, how you doing?
Working? Do you hear?
Yeah, you're a little bit breaking up.
Okay, I'm on my phone. Hold on.
Are you in Syria?
No, that was my Siri talking about.
Oh, okay.
Is this better?
Oh yeah, much better,
okay,
much
good.
better.
Yeah, no, I was on my Bluetooth in the car. So I'm actually at a Hampton Inn that's now open. Everybody can see.
Now open.
And so I travel for work, and so I was driving to my next location. So it's a brand new Hampton Inn, so I'm really excited to break this one in. This is pretty cool.
Where at, if you don't mind?
I'm in Georgia.
Georgia, there you go.
I'm in Georgia. So for my job, I work for an auction company, and we do trustee sales. And so they have this day called Super Tuesday where all of the counties in all of Georgia, they'll do a courthouse auction in the morning. And so that's basically what I do.
Oh, sounds like a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, it's actually much cooler because they fly me out, so I get to take all those points, and I get to
that's the best. Man, I'm so jealous of people to get to travel for work. Yeah. That's one thing that I don't do. That's for anybody, anybody tuning in. If you want miles, the easiest way to do it is to pay for your travel, or have somebody else pay for your travel. That's even better.
Yeah,
that's one way for sure to rack up miles.
Definitely. I mean, my trip that I just went on, half of it was paid off of traveling for work, and that was only in I guess maybe 6 months. So that was pretty cool.
So I think you spoke a little bit about that trip last week, but where all you go, what all you do?
So I started out in Detroit, and then I booked. That was the most stressful because I had booked a flight, a business class flight, and one was in November, and one ticket was in September. And we were just trying to get any flight out to Sydney, Australia from Detroit. And so I think every hour on the hour, 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and then finally at 7 a.m. Eastern time, 2 days before the actual flight, the flight opened up for business class for Mile Saver. So we were able to switch our flights and get that all situated. Side note to anybody who is going to be going to Sydney, Australia, make sure to get your digital visa before you check in, because I think the first time we went to Sydney, we flew Delta, and Delta, they took care of the visas for us upon check-in. American doesn't do that, so it was literally an hour before we needed to go and hop on our flight, and then we had to just buy our visas right then and there, and we thankfully got on the flight. So
wow.
we flew business class the whole way to Sydney, Australia, spent just the day in Sydney to hop on the flight for the Etihad flight from Abu Dhabi, for Sydney to Abu Dhabi. That flight was amazing. It was freaking amazing. And
yeah.
I can't explain it more than just how amazing it was. Somebody had messaged me on Reddit and said, keep your expectations high because they're going to meet it. And that they were 100% right.
That's very similar to my Japan Airlines flight. It was just incredible. So you actually, you found business saver from Detroit down to Sydney on American.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. It's very difficult to do.
Yeah, 2 days before, actually the day of the deval. So I think everybody was just trying to like find flights, and somebody told me just book any flight on any day, anytime within the year with that price, and then switch it later. And so we were.
Yeah, or even try it. Nothing's guaranteed with that. I mean, for anybody who's tuned in since the beginning, when I was talking about all the business class seats and everything, if you find a business class flight to Australia, book it now. Don't question yourself. Book it because it will be gone within hours. It's so hard to find anything business down to Australia.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even like a couple of days before, they didn't even open up the business mile saver seats. So we were freaking out because we're like, okay, they didn't open them. That means like, they oversold or they, don't have any seats left. So we were checking like every hour on the hour, and it was pretty intense just going over just for those couple days right before. And then we got a free chauffeur transfer. So we got a chauffeur pickup in Sydney. And then, which was like a highlight. It was like a perk because for some reason, we had two separate chauffeur drives. And so my husband got the Jag and I got the Mercedes E-Class. So that was pretty cool. And then they gave us a free transfer from Abu Dhabi to Dubai. So we spent the whole day in Dubai. I kind of regret not having a few extra days in each city, just because you kind of want to enjoy, you kind of want to reset. And just like you said earlier about your flight in Japan, like you want to experience the whole flight and like the whole business aspect of it and all the food and everything. Because as soon as I got on the Etihad flight, they were serving dinner and I wanted to pass out so bad. And it was like painful to just try to stay up and enjoy it. So, I would.
Where were you at in terms of platinum cards? Switching the subject real quick before 10 o'clock. Where are you at on platinum cards? Have you applied for any? Are you waiting out? Are you holding out? Or where do you stand on it?
I almost applied at a convention and some lady was offering me $25,000. I was like, no way, lady. I know what you're up to. And I'm holding out. My husband got offered the $100,000 or $150 a while ago. We passed. And then he got offered the 100 and then we passed. And then we started getting into churning, and then now we're like kicking ourselves because we didn't.
Yeah. After you realize, I don't think you don't really. The points are so arbitrary until you really start to look into it, and you realize, wow, that's a lot. Like $150,000, that's $3,000.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money. People just don't really think about it. I guess people think points, they don't really think money, but it is ridiculous.
And really, when you are in Las Vegas and you pass that Centurion lounge, you feel like, God dang it! Like I should have just gotten the card. It really does kind of make a difference, especially your lounge experience when you're there.
I was in the Centurion Lounge in Dallas, and I was disappointed. I wasn't really a big fan. I liked the Admiral's Lounge there. It was pretty nice. The Centurion Lounge was it was so crowded. There were so many people there. It's like you go in, you kind of feel like you're in like an exclusive club, and then you can't even sit down because all 10,000 seats are taken. It's ridiculous.
So wait, were you at the Admiral's Lounge or were you at the Flagship Lounge?
No, I was at the Centurion Lounge, in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
When I walked in there, it was like couldn't find a seat. The only seats that were there were crappy seats. The food spread wasn't bad, but I don't know. I just wasn't really a big fan. And then we left and we went to the Admiral's Lounge in Terminal D, which I thought really enjoyable. Even though it was a little bit more open, it was kind of sectioned off nicely. The views of the tarmac were absolutely awesome. It was cool to watch planes take off and land. So I enjoyed that a lot more. And the Centurion Lounge is like right in the middle of the airport, so you don't get a lot of that. But I don't know. I mean, I'm sure, I do want to check out the one in Vegas. That's for, one place I have to go just to see one of the lounges there. My fiance is actually going there next month, so I'm going to have to tell her to. I think I have her as an AU on one of the cards, so I have to make sure she stops in.
To scope it out. Yeah, definitely. I want to see
sure.
what's inside. But, I mean, it's so funny because the way that you feel about Centurion lounges is exactly how I feel about Admiral's lounges. I mean, I'm always like, God dang it. Like, it's either so crowded or the food's not that good. But I can tell you that all of the lounges that I've been to have really spectacular views. I mean, the one in Chicago, there's the Executive Club, and that has, like, the view of, like, the whole airport. It's just, like, really, really pretty.
Right. And then I stayed we went to a flagship lounge in Chicago, and I wasn't even a fan of that. I like Admiral's Lounge in Dallas more than I like the flagship lounge in Chicago for sure.
Yeah.
But hey, it's about 10 o'clock, so I'm going to wrap up the show. But thanks for stopping in.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
We'll definitely, absolutely stop in again. See you next week.
See you next week.
Okay, so I'm going to try to finish up the show deal, and then I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about stuff afterwards. So if you guys don't know, usually after the show I stick around. Does Mercedes Platinum get a Centurion Lounge access? Yes. Anything with any of the Platinum cards get all the same benefits. So there are no, certain cards don't get certain benefits, I believe. And then I do want to jump into Jacob's question. See, my problem is my question answering pod, I think, is over here. It's not working. It hasn't worked for the last 3 or 4 weeks. I'm not sure what's going on. They say they're working on it though. So Jacobs asked about using Korean airline miles to get to Europe. I've never looked it up. It's really interesting that you said that. I know that Korean Airlines is really cheap to get to Hawaii. I haven't looked it up to get to Europe. The thing that I guess one of the biggest problems with the Korean Airlines trick is that with anything Korean Airlines, you have to book for yourself and only relatives. So if your husband or wife, your children, but if you have a girlfriend, boyfriend, fiance, things like that, you can't book for them under the same itinerary. And then even so, it does get pretty complicated with using the miles and everything on there. So I haven't booked Korean yet. I was looking to go to Hawaii, and I had everything planned out, and I didn't end up booking that flight. I know that I shared out my spreadsheet from earlier, not my spreadsheet, my document from earlier on my Bali trip that I didn't end up going on. If you guys want to take a look at the Hawaii trip that I didn't end up going on, you guys are free to look at this as well. Let me grab you guys a link. I like these documents because it just, like I said, it keeps everything in good order for me. And then from there, it's just a little bit easier to handle a lot of this stuff. So let me jump on here. I want to change this to anybody with a link. Save it. Grab this link. All right, so here's my here's how I book everything. Is that somebody spamming? Sorry, guys. Like I said, it's been getting a little bit worse lately. They're going to have to do some stuff to fix that. So there's the link that I posted, and the link that I posted, that's my Hawaii itinerary, and that's kind of the way that I do a lot of my flights. Is I plan everything out. I kind of organize it all in a document. It just helps me keep track of everything, so I can see that I'm looking for 2 people to go to Hawaii. I'm flying economy both ways, I believe, through the Korean airline trick, and I'm using SPG through Korean. So when you look down at the bottom, you see 106,000 SPG points. That's because I'm booking 2 people through Korean Airlines. So it's a little bit more, intensive, I guess we want to say, whichever you want to say there. Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show. It's 10 o'clock, so I want to appreciate everybody for stopping in. Sorry I don't get a formal goodbye here, but I will be on next week again. Try to keep it every week. I'm going to try to. I think it seems to be pretty doable. So next week will be the 9th at 9 p.m. I try to get my link up a little bit early. So if you guys haven't followed me, I'm not sure exactly how to even do it, but there's a way to subscribe to me. I think if you click on my name, so if you see my picture right here, if you click on my name, which is right here, there is a way you click on that, it should bring up my name, and there is a way to subscribe there. If you subscribe, you'll get an email or so whenever I start my show, whenever I actually schedule it, because usually I schedule these shows, about 5 days early, and it kind of helps me determine how many people are going to be there, and if I'm familiar with you, and lets me know that you plan on stopping in. So I'm going to go ahead, cut off the recording now. I'll stick around here, answer whatever other questions that people have. Kind of go off topic a little bit more, and we'll go from there. So again, thanks for everybody for stopping in, and we'll see you guys next week.